Welcome to today's topic of what is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship and innovation are certainly big topics, and so it makes sense to start out in thinking about entrepreneurship and what it means in the context of our specific course. So the working definition that we're going to take a look at is not purely entrepreneurship in a startup context, but a bit broader, and we're going to look at entrepreneurship and think about it as understanding the creation of an enterprise or business that has the chance of profit or success. And so you see some ors here, and this again gives you some sense of the total landscape, and that it may be a business or it may be an enterprise. So that might be an organization, that may be a nonprofit, it might be an organization or an outreach of a larger entity, but fundamentally we're looking at some creative aspect of building an organization that's going to be operating with a chance of profit or success. Again, and that it may be a for-profit venture, it may be a nonprofit venture, or there might be other goals that also are motivating for the creation of the venture. So again, we'll work with this as our working definition as we think about entrepreneurship in the context of this course. It also makes sense to think about, well, why study such a thing? So in that way, certainly by studying it, we can learn about what others have done, we can learn best practices, hopefully we can also learn from others' failures. But fundamentally, we'll start by thinking about what are some of the motivations for entrepreneurship? What would motivate individuals to begin this journey and to pursue something that's going to be a significant challenge and a significant opportunity cost? So why study it? There are people that may argue you're an entrepreneur or you're not. Hopefully you don't believe that, or you're not going to pay money to come to a class to learn more about it. Why study entrepreneurship? What drives people or what excites people?
Money.
Money. There we go. What do we think about that? Is money a good motivator if you want to be an entrepreneur? Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So 97% of the millionaires in the U.S. are entrepreneurs. What else do we know about entrepreneurship? Yep.
Individuality.
Okay. There's some individual elements. Let's stick with the money piece. I think you're 2 slides ahead of me. Let's stick to the money piece. What do we know about money and the likelihood of money in entrepreneurship?
Helps the economy.
Helps the economy. Okay.
It's very unlikely.
Unlikely. Most ventures fail. And depending on what you read, 80 or 90% of startups fail. So if you want to make money, what should you do? Particularly as a young person, what should you do?
Have a business plan and stick to it.
That's part of it, but still, even with that, 80%, 90% fail.
Like learn how other people failed.
Learn how other people, okay?
I think that you need to do like a lot of research, kind of, where you want to market it.
Okay.
And, like, see what that kind of people, or that population, what they need.
Okay. So research, customer discovery. Yes, ma'am.
You have to try to find investors or a way to have.
Need investors? Okay. But y'all are still stuck on being entrepreneurs. Who makes the highest starting salaries out of undergrad? Not the business majors.
PhDs.
Out of undergrad. The engineering students. Computer science. I have computer science undergrads making $90,000 a year. Out of undergrad. Business, 60. What about out of grad school? Who makes big money out of grad schools? Lawyers. $200, $300, $400 an hour. Good money. Doctors. Good money. So again, if money is a big motivator, say the chances of making it are much higher in law and engineering and science and medicine than it is in entrepreneurship. But if you want to make a lot of money, and there's a risk element, we'll talk about risk as well, people see entrepreneurship as being a central way to do that. But there are other motivators. Someone talked about this element of independence. Freedom generally comes with that as well. When we look at what is it that drives people to take that risk, to forego guaranteed salaries or bigger salaries elsewhere, and to do that in a way that gives them the opportunity to have more freedom or more independence than they believe they would have in another type of profession or career. Creation. What do entrepreneurs make? What do they create? Products. So their products, their services. What else do they make or create?
Possibly business connections.
Okay, relationships, business connections. What else? What else do they create? Jobs. So they're creating companies. They're creating jobs. And you might have a product or service, but you also might have 20 or 40 or 100 employees that are relying and dependent on you to make the right call if you're in charge, and their jobs and their careers are depending on that. Do entrepreneurs help anybody other than paying taxes and creating jobs? Yep.
Me?
Okay, so that's kind of the jobs and the tax base. So I would buy that. Yep.
People like using their product or service.
There may be some element of benefit of the product or service that they've created being helpful. And we like, I see Apple, Apple, Apple. We like Apple. Can we survive without it?
Yeah.
Sure. But we like it, and you'll find that the majority of the money that you spend on things you like, not what you need. So in that way, we'll talk about needs and wants and preferences as well. But again, there's satisfaction in that. And there's a help aspect, too, that we'll talk a little bit about when we look at social entrepreneurship and elements where individuals are starting companies or starting organizations that are bringing people things they need beyond things that we want. And we'll differentiate those two. So why not? So we have this thing called entrepreneurship. You can make some money, you can have some freedom, some independence, some control, you can help. Very few people, less than 5% in the U.S., are entrepreneurs. Why?
There's a lot of risk involved.
It's risky. What are you risking?
Everything. Your money. Your money.
Okay, so there's a risk element of money and time and an opportunity cost of you could do other things. What happens if you fail?
You're screwed.
What happens if you fail?
You're out of money.
Okay, you've spent your money. You've spent your time. Those may be non-recoverable. What else?
Embarrassment.
You may be embarrassed. There may be some element, again, of peer pressure. When you do something and you succeed, what do your friends and family tell you? Good job. Knew you could do it. What about when you fail?
Try again next time.
Told you so. Shouldn't have done it. And particularly if you're doing the thing that is rare. If you're the one starting the company, and friends and family and other people are the ones working for other people, again, you're rare. You're somewhat unique in many cases. And so, again, peer pressure plays into that. Family as well. So at the University of Maryland, we'll see about 1,500 students a year engaged in entrepreneurship courses and programs. Few, if any of them, to my knowledge, were sent to college, particularly if the parent's paying tuition, to be an entrepreneur. Why is that the case?
Because there's not like a certainty, so there's not like a security blanket.
Okay, there's an element of it's unknown. It's not secure. I would say increasingly employment is not secure these days with layoffs and other things, but entrepreneurship still more so than most other careers. It's not the type of thing that, to my experience, a lot of families are encouraging people to do because there's risk. And so it may not necessarily be out of malice. They might not necessarily look to do something that's going to be against you or that they don't have confidence with you. It's more of the element of safety, of security. They want what's best for you, and they recognize that there's a lot of risk inherent in entrepreneurship. What about opportunity cost? If I went home this afternoon and said, yeah, I've got this group of students, they're a pretty good group, but I went ahead and quit because I have an idea to start a company. How would my wife respond to that?
What's wrong with you?
What was that? Yeah. What's wrong with you? What were you thinking? Why does she respond with that from an opportunity cost perspective?
Because you gave up doing this.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay. So you had a job. You were making respectable money. You were doing something that you seem to like, and you have put that aside to do this other startup thing. And so again, opportunity cost, fairly high. What about for somebody graduating from college? What about for the 22-year-old that's finishing their degree? What's their opportunity cost to start a company?
A lot.
You say a lot. I say very little. So we have a lot and a little. Let's do both. So give me the a lot.
I mean, it depends on what you're creating and what you have in mind.
Okay.
Something could cost a lot of money.
So it depends on the opportunity that you're pursuing, contrasted with the opportunity that you're foregoing. So you say little.
I think that most college, at least business majors, you said only make like $60,000 a year.
Okay.
I mean, it's respectable, but I mean, it's not, you can give that up without having to worry too much.
Okay. It's probably less than you're going to make in the future. And we can argue, is 60 a whole lot? Is it little? Is it good? Is it average? But it's probably, if you're going to start with a certain salary, chances are your salary is going to go up over time. And you're going to make more 5 and 10 and 20 years out than you did immediately. So from a salary perspective, I would say your opportunity cost is very low finishing undergrad than it would be if you waited later. There's also opportunity cost of time. What competing forces do you have on your time at 22 versus 32?
When you're 32, you might have a family, you might
Okay.
have more obligations in that perspective.
Okay. So with age, for many people comes family and other obligations, which means less time to work on your venture. And we hear talk of work-life balance. If I'm an investor and I'm giving you a check for $5 million to make this company something, am I concerned about your work-life balance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not. Why am I not?
Just want the profit.
I want the work. I want the work done. I want you to make my $5 million into 10, 20, 100. I'm not necessarily concerned, do you get to see your friends on the weekend? I'm not necessarily concerned, do you get to go to softball practice for your kids? Now that sounds a bit severe, but that's a reality of many investors. What about your competition? Is your competition concerned about your work-life balance? They'd rather you just have life and not work very much. That way they're going to have more success with you. So in that way, again, this work-life element you hear about, but I would think for most startups, again, it's difficult. And again, another reason that to start a company when you are younger, I would argue, presents a lot more advantages. And I would say from an opportunity cost perspective, your opportunity costs are low. What happens if it fails? So you have your degree, you have some offers, different companies, good offers, but you would like to do a startup as well, and a year later that startup fails. Didn't work out like you thought it would. What do you do then?
Learn from your mistakes.
Okay. So you learn something from that, so maybe you do a second startup. What else might you do? What else might you do?
Join a company where you can get like a salary and make.
Okay. You probably go right back to what you would have done a year ago. If you were a good candidate at 22, you're probably a good candidate at 23. You've had a year to learn some stuff. And if they wanted you then, they'll probably want you now. They may pay you the same, so they might not necessarily pay you a lot more than they would have a year ago, but again, only been a year. And in that way, again, when you look at opportunity costs too, I would think about kind of what's the worst that can happen and can you go back to what you would have done anyway? And for a lot of us, we can, particularly when we are younger. So with that being said, what does it take to succeed? And we've touched on a few of these elements. So what does it take to succeed as an entrepreneur? What comes first? What's step one?
Motivation.
You need to be motivated.
The idea.
The idea, some element of opportunity discovery. And so we're going to spend a fair amount of time on that. Learning how to write a business plan, easy. Learning how to write a marketing plan and financial statements, easy. Very teachable. thousands of books out there on how to do it. Learning how to discover opportunity, quite difficult. And it's very easy to write a great plan on a lousy concept. But even if your concept is great and your plan is mediocre, I would say it still has a pretty good chance of success. So in that way, again, having the discovery piece, being able to recognize and see opportunities, I think is the hardest part of entrepreneurship. So that's where we're going to spend a fair amount of our time. What do you do once you've discovered an opportunity? What do you do once you have an idea? How do you know if that idea is good or not?
See if you can get an investor.
Takes some time. So I would say investors come a bit later because investors are going to want to see something. So it's more than I have an idea, what do you think? What else do you need to show those investors?
Well, like, if I thought of an idea first, I'd share it with other people to see, like, what they thought, and if they thought that, like, if it was a good idea, then, like...
So there's some element of getting input from others, okay? And we'll talk about that. What do your friends and family tell you about your ideas?
That they're good, so you...
That they're good, because that's polite. That's nice. Seems appropriate. Again, if your friends and family are in your target market, their input may be valuable, but also go beyond the people that are just going to be nice to you.
So you try a focus group?
Okay, so you try focus groups, and you're really just going down the path of doing some level of analysis. How is this different than what's out there? How is this different than what's going to be out there? What can I find from primary research, which is what you're talking about? What can I find from going out and speaking and talking to people that are representative of my market? And then also secondary research of going through and reading reports and doing analyses and being able to capture information that's in the marketplace. So in summary, we've taken a look at some of these motivations, we've taken a look at some of these goals and objectives and why we would study entrepreneurship, but we also want to begin to connect that with the rest of the course. And so once we have a handle on why we're doing what we're doing, we can think about, well, what comes next? And for us, it's about understanding the opportunity and initially discovering that opportunity, being effective in how to analyze these opportunities, and then to be thoughtful with our decision making. And so this sets the landscape for what we want to do with the course and gives you some overview and introduction to the topic and what we plan to do next. Thank you.